Good day, everyone. Another beautiful day here. My name is Akpomiemieand you're most welcome to my studio. If this is your first time, absolutely pleasure to have you here. If you're returning, better still, you're most welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something quite different from what I promised in the last video when I did the concluding part of my bookshelf volume 2. You might recall that I said I was going to work next on Queen Nzinga, but I thought I would just do something a little bit different because I realized that in the bookshelf series there were two fantastic writers that I did not talk about well enough. So I thought maybe best before I go on to Queen Nzinga, let me just talk a little bit more about his two great historians, and one historian, one a scientist. The first one of the two is John Henrik Clarke, and then CHEIKH ANTA DIOP. And of these two gentlemen, I was at a loss how best to present them. At one time, I wanted to do the painting of both men, but I thought, no, that might not quite nail it, Maybe at a future time, who knows, I might do a painting of them, but I just thought, how can I represent these two men? And it occurred to me because they were writers as well. I thought I want to represent them by producing their books, just like I've done before in the bookshelf series. But in this case now, I brought their books, just two of their books. So I thought I would use this as a medium of introducing them. This fantastic, beautiful lady here that is just sitting. I call this painting, by the way, this is coffee break. The lady, she's having a cup of coffee in a cafe, in a library somewhere. She's just relaxing. And on her desk, we see two books there. One by CHEIKH ANTA DIOP, one by John Henrik Clarke. That's what I thought, I will maybe use this venue as a way of presenting these two fantastic scholars. Now, you will notice that on both books there are no titles. That is because I just could not restrict these men to specific titles. They've written quite a lot, books as well as articles, and gave lots of presentations on their subject, which they know absolutely. These are two authorities. So I thought, okay, use this lady. I don't know what she's thinking. She's sitting there quite sedate, and and we notice a butterfly just came into our purview. And I must say, in this case of this butterfly, it was not part of the original idea. That's one thing about the beauty of painting. Sometimes ideas comes to you. So I was actually painting when a butterfly just came here. So that's nice. I love it. The butterfly was nice. So I just, okay, just insert that there. And that is what the lady is looking at, a beautiful butterfly. And I thought the life of the butterfly is quite a beautiful analogy if you want to look at the history of Africa, life started in Africa anyway, from the unrecognizable bottom of humanity, and we were able to transform from early man to the height of man's civilization when we got to Kemet. And I say the height because all what was achieved in Kemet thousands of years ago, man today has not been able to achieve most of those things, be it spirituality, societal harmony, architecture. Architecture, for example, let's say we take the pyramids, for example. There are pyramids thousands of years ago. We do not have the technology still to recreate the pyramids. I mean, the Japanese went there in the 70s and wanted to prove everybody wrong and decided to just say even a small one, but the Japanese couldn't pull it off. So after a series of failures and embarrassment, they packed their bags and left. That is just the pyramid alone. I mean, to think that man that has gone to space gone to the moon everywhere, still cannot do we haven't got the technology to rebuild the pyramids today. It's something quite incredible. Spirituality, what the ancient people of Kemet give to the world in terms of the deity. Even things like societal living. People talk about governmental structures. Women in society, for example. These are people that back in their time, women were elevated. So we had female goddess as well as male gods. Male pharaohs, female pharaohs. So it's incredible if you look, So I thought, oh, that's the life of the caterpillar that becomes a beautiful butterfly. Yeah, what is so sad about the story of Africa today is as if we've now reversed that whole story. It's as if the script has been flipped. Things now upside down. So we that gave Africans that gave the world this fantastic civilization way of life, it's been reversed to say no, we are the bottom. So it becomes so difficult to relate the caterpillar at the beginning to the beauty of the butterfly at the end. So it's anyway. That's just my thinking anyway. That's why I use the butterfly. One thing about art I've come to realize over the years is that the artist might have something in mind, but you, the viewer, might have something else. So you viewing this work now, give it your own interpretation, if you will. I'd like to hear what you have to say on the comment section about this lady. So, what is she thinking about? We don't know. Which of the books has she read? We don't know. What did she get from the books she read? We don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. So but we can only imagine that she must have come well informed from reading the books of these two gentlemen. So we take the top of the list, CHEIKH ANTA DIOP. My goodness. CHEIKH ANTA DIOP, it was Senegalese. He was born in 1923, sadly died in 1986. He was only 62. But in that short space, my goodness, personally, I believe CHEIKH ANTA DIOP was the greatest intellectual of consequence to come out of the African world in the whole of the 20th century. Hands down, nobody beats CHEIKH ANTA DIOP. He was a linguist, he was an anthropologist, he was an historian, he was a physicist, he was even a politician. He dabbled into politics. I mean, for politics, he founded 3 political parties, and for his troubles, he was sent to prison because common amongst some of our leaders back then, and even till today, don't appreciate great voices that come to challenge the status quo and want to put things right. I think if CHEIKH ANTA DIOP had the chance, who knows, he might have been the best. Well, I still think he is the best president Senegal never had, but that once a level, let's be hopeful, because at the moment in Senegal, there's a young chap that is doing fantastically well, so hopefully he might change to the wrong for his country. Anyway, CHEIKH ANTA DIOP is one of those people that he did a lot to change the narrative of history. Because before CHEIKH ANTA DIOP came along, the conventional wisdom was that the original people of Kemet, the ancient Kemetians, were not melanated black-skinned Africans. They were actually, most of the achievement of Black Africa was attributed to the local Roman period people, that is after Alexander the Great came, and then the Ptolemies, and then the Romans, and even then the Arabs. But this whole thing is just ridiculous, because at the time Alexander came to Kemet, everything, all the great pyramids we talked about, the Haramaketi, which some people call the Sphinx, everything has been done. Civilization was actually on its way down before the Greeks came along, let alone the Romans. So after the Greeks were there for 300 years, the Romans there for hundreds of years as well, still had the whole thing called diluted. Not talk of the Arabs. I mean, the issue of the Arabs is even more ludicrous because the clue is in the name. When you say Arab, it tells you already, Arab is not an African word. So anybody that's of Arab descent, it tells you that that group, that person comes from Arabia, Arabian Peninsula, that is Arab. Similarly, I mean, as we all know, Bob Marley, even the musicians, they've been singing all over the years. Wherever you find yourself in the world, so long you are black, you melanated, you are an African. You can be in Indonesia, you can be in Japan, anywhere you are, so long you're black, you're African. It's the same with the European. You can be in South Africa, you can be in America, you can be in Canada, you can be in New Zealand. You are European. Circumstances moved you from Europe to wherever you now found yourself. So this is, anyway, what CHEIKH ANTA DIOP was able to do to bring an end to this prolonged argument, this was in the 1970s, I think 1974 or thereabout, where the UNESCO, that is the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, an arm of the UN, United Nations. So UNESCO called this conference in Cairo. Great minds, intellectuals were called together from all around the world, Egyptologists, to address this issue. CHEIKH ANTA DIOP with his colleague back then, Theophilus Obenga, they came with evidence, documentary facts beyond doubt, beyond any doubt, that the original people were black Africans. What did he do? He used the melanation dosage test with melanin. He tested the mummies and found that with his test, the melanin in them proved that they were black beyond any doubt. The other scientists there, they had to dove their hat for CHEIKH ANTA DIOP that he proved his case, because he didn't only use the melanin test to prove his case. Because he's a linguist, he was able to show that the language of the ancient Kemetans was not a Semitic language, but he found traces of the old language inside Africa, in the depths of Africa. Not the language and lots of customs the Africans shared that the Europeans do not share, Arabs do not share. So he proved his case. That was what CHEIKH ANTA DIOP did. And it became then accepted that, wow, these Africans, you guys, these two, Theophilus Obenga and CHEIKH ANTA DIOP, they proved it. And it became an accepted fact then. CHEIKH ANTA DIOP is one of those people that he was not only just, like I said, he was a politician, he was a social observer, and he was also an archaeologist. There's one little fact that lots of people don't know. If you go to the British Museum today, the beard, because Hiram Maketi, before his nose and lips were knocked off by Napoleon, the French, their destructive nature. Before Napoleon and his men knocked off the nose of Hiram Maketi, which you call the Sphinx, if you go to the British Museum there, the beard is there. They place the beard, is a major part of the exhibition, just below the Shabaka stone, which Professor Kaba wrote quite a lot about. Anyway, for many years, it was discovered that the British Museum had splinters of the nose of Hiram Maketi, Sphinx. I don't like calling it the Sphinx. I explained that why on my first volume of the bookshelf. Anyway, the shattered piece of the Sphinx's nose, I call it Sphinx because that's what we used to, was the British Museum. They just put it away somewhere in their storage system. You cannot just display just little splinters. So Cheikh Anta Diop, with the help of another great writer, intellectual, um, Ivan van Serdeman, they approached the British Museum and pleaded with the British Museum to please return these splinters of the Sphinx, not to them but to the museum in Cairo. Today we have modern technology. You can put it together, and if you put the nose of the Sphinx back together, you'll be able to tell without a doubt the identity of the Sphinx. That is his racial identity. Prove beyond that he's black. Well, eventually, after much pleadings, the British Museum agreed, and the splinters were returned to Cairo. But guess what? Till today, the Egyptian Museum refused to exhibit it. They're keeping it quiet. I mean, it is amazing. The reason why I love talking about all these great people that dug into our history, it is because of this deliberate attempt by powers that be to want to deny Africa our heritage. In any case, the heritage of Egypt is the heritage of mankind, heritage of the world. But don't deny the original owners. That is the problem, you know. With Africans, we've made great contributions to the world, but repeatedly, I mean, you recall in Volume 1, I talked about the work of Martin Bernal, the Black Antenna, where we saw what the Germans intellectuals did to mislead people deliberately. This wasn't an accident. So when we talk about all these things, it's not like, some people that are just being mischievous. No, this way they were being mischievous, but this is clever minds that go way out to mislead history, to mislead people. In Sterling Legacy, G.M. James said the same thing when he proved documentary evidence coming from Europeans to say, you guys are misleading the world. You're giving all these great achievements of Africans to the Greeks, to the Romans, and other Europeans, and just denying Africans our heritage. Why? I mean, one thing that G.M. James, G.M. James showed us is people like Herodotus that claim to have done so much, they could never have done all these things. Because even people like some of the orators, actually, some of the people like Herodotus, they confirmed it that the original people of Kemet, ancient Egypt, were Africans. Melanated people, black skinned people with woolly hair. Not Europeans. Not Europeans. But as time goes by, things achieved by Africans, be it medicine, people like Imhotep, mathematics, arithmetic. Africans, we gave the word mathematics, arithmetic, geometry, for example. Now, when you talk of geometry, mathematics, arithmetic, they always say, oh, if the Arabs did Europeans did. I mean, you call it, what do you call it? Talking about these things, for example, right? We had, it is argued that the so-called basic knowledge now, Pythagoras theory, you named it after a fellow. That's Pythagoras theory, a square plus b square equals c square. Basic. You call it Pythagoras theory. But this is something that was used, that same formula was used over 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years in the building of the pyramid before the so-called Pythagoras, to whom it is named after, was even born. How do you tie all these facts together? I mean, it's just ludicrous. Anyway, that is just by the by. I just invite you to please let's appreciate Cheikh Anta Diop. He was a great scientist, and he did a lot. Sometimes when I talk about people like this, what they did for Africa, you see, I only use Kemet, ancient Egypt, as history, because what these ancient Kemetians did is they recorded their stuff. So it's not a case of, oh, the 7 wonders of the world, we believe one was here, one was there, this was there. No, no. Of the so-called wonders of the world, the pyramid is still there. You can go there, walk into it, and see with your own eyes. It's not a case of, I believe it was here, I believe it was there. No, it is there physically. Go and see it. Go to Egypt and see it. The first stone structure known to man is still there. That is the stair pyramid of built for Zosa by Imhotep. It's still there in Sankara. Now, I always, like I said, I go to Egypt because Egypt, they recorded all their stuff, but Egypt wasn't the oldest civilization. There were other civilizations all over the place. I mean, we know, for example, even the Egyptians, they say they came from an older civilization. They came from what we now, from Nubia. Close to Kemet, they found there's a place called Tasseti. Tasseti they had a dynastic system 200 years older than Kemet. And as a matter of fact, we cannot even claim that the Kemetians, they gave us writing, because they found in Tasseti that the people of Tasseti had a writing system, which of course was a literature, but what the Kemetians did, ancient Egyptians did, they modified it to what it is now today. I mean, just as many will tell you that the English we speak so widely around the world today is nothing but bad French that has been modified over the years, and lots of influences came into the language. We now have it today as a language. In ancient times, people of Tasseti, they had the Medrunecha, which the people of Kemet modified. So it's, and when we talk about this writing script of the ancient people, like I said, we have other civilizations. So they're not the only people to write. They're not the only people to write. I mean, we had other writing systems all over Africa. The Vice script is one. The Vice script is in Liberia and Sierra Leone. It was used all the way until the 19th century. We had the Bamoun script. The Bamoun script is used in Cameroon. It was used all the way to the 20th century. The Bamoun script, for example, it had, listen to this, 600 plus, over 600 characters. That's the Bamoun script. The Tifanga script. That Tifanga script, it goes back to the 3rd century. It was commonly used among people of the Sahara. The Unko script. The Unko script, that's another one, is very common among the Mande people. Mande people, and they use it all the way to, I think, say, up to 1940s, as soon as 1940s. The Ajami script is another one. The Ajami script is most popular in West Africa. The Ndinka script, that is more like symbol, like what you have in ancient Kemet. The Ndinka script is very common in Ghana, ancient Ghana. So even till the 19th century, it was still being used. As a matter of fact, it's incredible, really. It's incredible. Is it the Jehi script? The Jehi script, that is Ethiopia and Eritrea. In my own country, Calabar, Nigeria, we have the Nsimbili script. That one, it goes back to the 5th century. The Metro script of Kush, that's on that one. Again, that's the 3rd century, over 23 characters. So the Bedouin nature of Egypt is just one of many scripts. But people think Africans will just... Why this thing bothers me so much is because there is this common belief as if we Africans just sat by in the march of history, did nothing until the Europeans came along, which is absolutely ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. Africans, we just want the world to acknowledge our rightful place in the commentary of history. And it's not good to say, oh, it doesn't matter, oh, if you say this happened thousands of years ago. No, it matters even to today. Because what happens yesterday matters to today. History matters a lot. Because what happened in history 10,000 years ago and what happened 10 minutes ago occupies the same space in consciousness. Consciousness is all that matters. That is why we have writers like Wade Nobles, Hazel Hilliard, and many others saying we have to get our consciousness right. Wade Nobles say our consciousness is being so fractured. We have a fractured consciousness and a damaged personality, identity. So these are the things that we must consider why it is important for us to be a bit more vigilant and calling these people out that are trying to rob us of our history. And people like CHEIKH ANTA DIOP, they've been pioneers at this, doing this for many, many years. They spend their life to do it, and let us not forget them. Please, any book by CHEIKH ANTA DIOP is worth reading. Any book by CHEIKH ANTA DIOP is worth reading. In my first volume, my bookshelf, I just mentioned only two. Civilization or barbarism, and then Africa, the mother of civilization. Myth or reality. Because what these people like CHEIKH do, they present the facts, like what he did at the UNESCO conference. They present the facts. You cannot deny it. So even though people try to hoodwink you, by coming up with different, no. You cannot deny it. It's there for you to see and make up your own mind. So that's why I urge you to please look into the books of CHEIKH ANTA DIOP and make up your own mind what you see. It's a shame CHEIKH ANTA DIOP did not live that long. He died only at 62, but he left a lasting legacy. A lasting legacy. Anyway, that's it about CHEIKH ANTA DIOP. We can talk about CHEIKH ANTA DIOP all day, and we will not still have exhausted his contribution to. But what I want you to take home is this man was the greatest intellectual of consequence to come out of the African world in the whole of the 20th century. So, I mean, he's worth looking into. Look into his books, and you might be amazed at what you will find. I mean, he was just such a fantastic scientist. Fantastic man. And then let's talk about John Henrik Clarke. John Henrik Clarke is one of my favorite historians. I mean, John Henrik Clarke, he's an African American. This was what John Henrik Clarke said about when John Henrik Clarke sadly passed on. He passed on at 83. That was in America in 1998. He was 83 years old, so he had a bit of a long life. And like Chancellor William, sadly, at later stage of his life, he was losing his. Well, he did actually lose his eyesight, But even at his old age, he kept on writing to the end. He wrote so many books. And he was one of those people that you have to respect him because of his tenacity. He was a man. I mean, when he passed on, this was what the New York Times wrote about John Henrik Clarke. They said the ascension of John Henrik Clarke to the position of Professor Emeritus at Hunter College was unusual because he did not have the benefit of a high school diploma, let alone a PhD. This was a man that was actually lecturing PhD students when he didn't have a PhD. He said he only did his speech because he read voraciously. He read everything. I mean, when it comes to world history, he was an authority. But African history, my goodness. People like Dr. Ben, they focus on Egypt, Kemet. But Dr. Clarke, he was vast. The entire continent. He covered it. He covered the entire continent. He did great works. Great works. And what I like about his writing, he makes it comes to life as well, you know. He uses language that you can easily follow. I mean, this man, he opened your eyes to so many achievements of the Africans. And one thing I love about him, he was always pressing John Henrik Clarke. He was always pressing home that point that wherever you are from in the world at the moment, you are an African. He was always preaching the oneness of we Africans. When you were in Africa, there were no Jamaicans. There were no African Americans. There were no British Americans, African Britons, or African Germans, or African Barbadians. No. There were no Barbadians, there were no Trinidadians, there were no any of it. You were Africans. You went on, you were captured from Africa and dropped in different parts of the world. That doesn't change you. I mean, Malcolm X used to say the same thing as well. I love that about Malcolm X. He said, we are Africans living in America. And talking of Malcolm X was somebody that John Henrik Clarke worked with a great deal. As a matter of fact, to tell you something, as a matter of fact, Malcolm X, he did progress from civil rights and was taking his whole fight with onto the human rights platform, because like he always used to say, you know, if Americans were treated as citizens properly, there will not be any need to fight for civil rights. But because they're not even treated properly with human dignity, so he wanted to take their case to the United Nations under the human rights banner. That was what he was fighting for before he was brutally murdered. Anyway, one thing about Clarke, apart from all his writings, John Henrik Clarke was one of those that used to furnish Malcolm X with historical facts, information from behind the scene. Malcolm X wasn't an historian. He was very eloquent. He was a very inspirational leader, and he wasn't academically. He wasn't that well read in when it comes to pure academia. But people like John Henrik Clarke used to work with him for many years to furnish him with the facts, with historical data, with which to present many of his speeches that he find so eloquent. So, and they were very close friends, very close. John Henrik Clarke was close friends with so many people. With the case of Malcolm X, the organization, because Malcolm X, like I said, he wanted to shift the argument. So after he left the Nation of Islam, he founded his own organization, the OAAU, the Organization for Afro-American Unity. I think he took it from the OAU. And John Henrik Clarke was actually working with that the founding document. As a matter of fact, John Henrik Clarke actually completed the charter. Has already written down the charter with working with Malcolm X and the whole leaders of the New to Be organization. They completed the final draft of the charter when sadly Malcolm was killed. But that did not stop John Henrik Clarke. He continued with the fight, and by enlightening our people, reawakening our consciousness, wake up. He was giving us all this very great information. He also traveled. My goodness, that man, he traveled far and wide, the Caribbean, Africa, everywhere. He spent lots of years in Ghana. As a matter of fact, in Ghana, he was very good friends with the Ghanaian Pan-Africanist leader. Nkrumah, Kwame Nkrumah, because him and Nkrumah, they were friends for, they were good friends for over 20 years, he said. Because what happened is, as you know, Nkrumah studied in America, and while in America, him and Clarke became friends. So when Nkrumah returned back to Ghana, John and Clarke, on one of his visits to Africa, I went to Ghana as well, and then he met Nkrumah. Rekindled the friendship. Nkrumah gave him a job, and he became, I think, an editor in one of the major newspapers of Ghana back in those days. And through that vehicle, he kept on with his mission to spread the message. So these people, they did. Clarke, people like Clarke was a great mentor to many people. He mentored so many people, and then that man just did so much. I was saying earlier on what the New York Times said about him. Because of his knowledge, he was guiding PhD students. As a matter of fact, we call him a doctor because he later got his PhD, and he said he did it just for the sake of for the formalities of it. Because he said when he got his PhD, he did it in very short time, I think within like 2 years or so, something like that. He learned nothing new before or after, because he was a master. He was already this man was kind of training other people on history, just to remind us of where we've been. That was one of his greatest quotes. Where we are, where we've been, and where we still must go, and what we still must be. That was his mantra, all true. Fantastic man. He gave us a lot, and in his passing, I think he donated over 20,000 books or so to his alma mater. Because this man, he was an authority, And today in America, I'm sure in time many schools will be named after this man, if it is not being done already. I know in the case of CHEIKH ANTA DIOP, when he passed, the government of Senegal, they did something beautiful. The oldest and biggest university of Senegal, known then as the University of Dakar, was renamed after CHEIKH ANTA DIOP. So it's there. The CHEIKH ANTA DIOP University in Senegal, named after this man for his contribution to reawakening of the African mind. I'm sure that we do well. I'm sure the African Americans will do such, if they're not doing it already, for John Henrik Clarke, because of his great contribution. So I really urge you, please, to look into the books of this man. They teach us a lot, remind us. This is not just an empty fable thing, but to remind us of where we are now, the reality of what are these factors that has placed us in such a predicament. And one way we can lift ourselves is by having our historical memory restored. Because if we've been able to do these things, build pyramids, create great civilizations, we can do it again. The things Africans have been able to achieve in the scientific world. I mean, in this 1978, it was discovered that Africans were smelting steel 2,000 years ago. Yes, 2,000 years ago. Other people were smelting steel in the world, but the one of the Africans was the finest when it comes to quality, and they were doing it in large scale. This was in Tanzania, and they were smelting this steel at a temperature of 1,850 degrees centigrade. No machine even achieved anything close to that temperature until the 19th century. Yes, the Africans that were doing this, they are using less energy to achieve their aim. This discovery I'm talking about came from none other than the archaeological department from the University of Brown University in America. 1987, they made that discovery. Africans, I mean, there's so much to unpack when it comes to our history. So many writers, so many anthropologists, so many archaeologists have done so much. From Dr. Ben to present day Dr. Anthony Brada. Anthony Brada is doing a work now, for example. He's digging the tomb of Karakame in Egypt, and he promised that by November this year, he's going to let us know his finding. He found he's digging the tomb of Karakame, and he said he also found around 40 other temples. I was into him the other day. He was having a chat with what's his name, Charles Finch, and Charles Finch was insisting your name is Karakame, so he's calling you Karakame. Talking about that, it'd be nice though if Anthony Brada will restore his African identity and take up the name of Karakame as suggested by Charles Finch, because ironically, Anthony Brada actually looks a bit like Karakame. He could have been Karakame reincarnated. Anyway, that is just by the by. So Anthony Brada, how do we get into Anthony Brada? Anthony Brada was also one of those people that was mentored by people like John Henrik Clarke. So, you know, anyway, what can I say about this man? Ivan Sediman worked very closely with CHEIKH Anta Diop, and he wrote a poem, like a poem which he dedicated to Anta Diop, that is passing, and I loved it. I'll try to recite it for you, because although it was for Diop, but I think it also applies to Clarke. So it's the words of Van Sedman for Clarke, but I will for CHEIKH Anta Diop, but I will have to include Clarke because I think it fits Clarke as well. This was what Sedman said. He said, men like Diop, in this case, men like Diop and Clarke do not die at the time of their deaths. For the fall of such great men is the beginning of the rise of their ideas. So let it be with Diop and Clarke. Isn't that beautiful? These are men whose work and words will live forever. Anyway, I would like to thank you one more time for joining me. It's been fantastic. My name is Akpomiemie. As promised, I'm going to talk about the great African queen by the name of Queen Nzinga. That's Queen Nzinga there. I hope you'll be able to join me when we talk about Queen Nzinga and dig a little bit more into this history, whom the great historian Chancellor Williams described as African greatest daughter. Why? Talking of what is it about this lady that will make a man of such acclaim to describe her as African greatest daughter? And just a good measure, the great John Henrik Clarke named one of his daughters after Nzinga. Why? So that should tell you there's a lot to unravel when it comes to this fantastic woman that giving us so much. So I look forward to you joining me when I talk on Queen Nzinga, the beautiful Queen Nzinga. So once again, thank you for joining me. If you've enjoyed this video, by all means, give it a thumbs up Better still, subscribe and let's roll and learn together. Once again, it's been a pleasure having you with me today. Thank you.